In my junior year of college in Ohio, I had a friend from Texas named Bill Edwards. His dad had purchased a ranch in Wyoming and offered Bill and me a summer job. Like all kids of my generation, I grew up on TV westerns. All I knew was that Wyoming was known as the cowboy state, so I told him I didn't care how much he was paying. If he'd buy me some boots and a cowboy hat, I was off to the Wild West. Bill and I left Houston, where his folks Mac and Polly lived, and headed for Wyoming in an old red 56 International four-wheel drive pickup. When we arrived at the Buckskin Crossing, where the Oregon Trail crossed the Big Sandy Creek, it could have been a movie set. No electricity or running water, but man, the whole place said, "This is cowboy country." Mac had hired a local rancher and outfitter to supervise us. Grant Beck was one hell of a cowboy. His obituary in 2010 described him like this: a guide, packer, outfitter, cowboy, horseman, cattleman, competitive roper, summer camp operator, and all-around hand. He was all of that. Our first day there, he took us to his ranch, where neighbors were gathered to brand and castrate a bunch of young calves. Man, we were living the dream. Our job at the Buckskin Crossing that summer was to drive a brush hog around the bench above the ranch, cutting the sagebrush so the area could be seeded for pasture. It would then be irrigated via a series of ditches, bringing water from the Big Sandy, which flowed out of the mountains and through the ranch bottomland. The actual ranch work that summer didn't take up much of our time, so we ended up playing cowboy, drinking, and basically screwing off. I got to spend a fair amount of time on horseback that summer. We had a few cattle on the ranch that Mac had bought. I rode up into the mountains and around the ranch. That fall, Bill and I returned to Oberlin. After graduation and a summer spent in California, I hitchhiked back to the ranch. By then, I had acquired a dog, and I spent my summers on the Buckskin Crossing. On the weekends, I played in the Cowboy Bar, where I had formed a country band with my buddy Rob Archer. I got my Wyoming guide's license and spent Octobers guiding hunters for Grant in the Grovant Wilderness, east of the Tetons. In the winters, I worked feeding cattle on Bill Hiddle's ranch outside of Boulder with a team of horses. I left Wyoming in November of 1972 after voting for George McGovern in the presidential election. I drove back to Maine, met Annie, and that was the end of my cowboy days.